Good morning, everyone, once again. My name is Ben Kuyo. I am Chief Creative Director at Blue Flamingo Digital. I am currently in Uganda. I'm really love to welcome all of you to this webinar, The Rise of Digital Media in Africa and its Impact on NGO Campaigns. This is a webinar series, so expect to see a few more of these coming up over the next few months. Lined up today, we have three amazing speakers from all over the world. First is Nadine Graham, who is the Operations Director at Door of Hope Children's Mission. We have Norby Zalberberg, yes, the Chief Creative Officer and founder of Socialdissima, who is currently, I believe, in Dallas, Texas. It's 4 a.m., so I really appreciate you joining us for this webinar. Then we have Fauziat Modupe, who's joining us from Abuja. She's the country social media engagement coordinator at DISC, the DISC project, working with Society for Family Health. She's also the founder of Health Communicators. Yes. So welcome, everyone. I will just introduce to you who we are. Like I said, my name is Ben Kuyo. I'm Chief Creative Director at Blue Flamingo. We're a Pan-African digital marketing and advertising agency with major focus on site, search, social, and mobile. We offer services, a wide range of services, including SEO, content management, strategy, digital advertising, social media management, e-commerce, as well as mobile app development. Our headquarters are in South Africa, and we have branches across the continent in Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. We also have a partnership we have partnerships with other agencies across the continent, and we will be giving you more details of that as we go along today on the presentation, on the webinar, sorry. Our clients, we have a wide range of clients drawn from different industries from across the continent, from telco to education, automotive. However, I'll focus more today, our webinar is more on the NGO, and we've worked with different NGOs from PSI to Ford Foundation, UHMG, HeLa in South Africa, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, among others. But this webinar is not for us to, just something talk about the work that we've done. It's to talk about the impact of digital and the rise of digital. And how it affects NGOs. I'll just start quickly with something that a friend of mine, Nikki, shared. Dan Pallotta had a TED Talk, and he highlighted the fact that 2% of only 2% of GDP currently in the US is contributed by NGOs, and this has been consistent. It has barely grown or shrunk, but this has been consistent over the last 40 years. Now, what this says means that donations are not growing, and spend from NGOs is not necessarily growing. While it could be debatable that, this money is growing in the sense, last year we spent 500,000, this year we spent 750. Could be argued that also inflation has had an impact. So in terms of value addition to GDP, it's remained at 2%. But how do we, as NGOs and as agencies, as communicators, help grow this spend? How do we help the NGO sector grow so that there's an even greater impact for the work that they've done? Many times donors are going to say, I want my money to be spent and impact that. I want it to impact the user or to the affected person. And I don't want you to spend it on advertising. So NGOs tend not to talk about the things that they're doing or talk about the work that they're doing, to talk about the products that they have if they are giving out products. But how else do you grow if you cannot advertise? But I believe as we go along, these are some of the things that we will be able to change and get, more funding for NGOs to get people to grow, get NGOs to understand that advertising is a core element of the work that they do. I will yield the floor to Nadine, who is Operations Director at Door of Hope. She's based in South Africa and has her organization, of the organization she works with, has cared for over 1,700 babies over the last 21 years. And she's a passionate child protection advocate. She's also co-founder of Baby Savers South Africa, an organization that is dedicated to legalizing self-relinquishment and ensuring that vulnerable, abandoned babies are given the best opportunity to survive. So Nadine, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ben. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very honored to be sharing our social media marketing strategies at Door of Hope with you all this morning. Firstly, my slide, there we go, sorry about that. Firstly, let me mention that our Door of Hope social media administrators are not professionals in the social media field, and we have not been on social media marketing courses, but we are passionate about what we do at Door of Hope, and it shows. So Door of Hope is a home for abandoned and unwanted babies that stay with us until they go for adoption. So we feel that social media is a wonderful platform to use to connect with our audience and for building relationships. For us, it's not just a broadcast channel, but an easy tool to use for marketing, advertising, awareness campaigns, good stories, and fundraising. Like Eric Wallman, author of Socialnomics, said, we don't have a choice whether we do social media. The question is, how well do we do it? Facebook helps us to connect with our supporters by keeping them updated on our work, our celebrations, and our needs. What is important for us as well is that Facebook reaches a wider demographic because people can use the chat function without having to use data. This is a big benefit for us at Door of Hope, as we feel it's a very good tool for communication with desperate pregnant mommies who are in need of help. Door of Hope created our Facebook profile in 2011. We started off initially with celebrating the arrival of new babies into our care and when adoptions took place. 10 years later, we have close to 50,000 followers on Facebook, and we use Facebook to share about everything we do, as well as sharing about our needs as they arise. We realized very quickly that it is important to know who your followers are. This plays an important role in the decision-making of what to post when. As an example, our largest percentage of followers are in South Africa, followed next by Americans. When we have a post that applies mainly to our US followers, like for instance, celebrating Independence Day, we'll generally post in the afternoons in South African time. For our South African audience, we post in the mornings and the afternoons, but we also schedule special posts for public holidays and weekends, so that when we are not at work, social media still does the work for us. 91% of our followers are generally ladies between the ages of 25 and 44, an age group that generally consists of ladies who want babies, ladies who have children, and ladies who are new moms. So our posts include photos of the beautiful babies in our care, photos of our new arrivals, and of course, photos of celebrating adoptions. This, we feel, is photos that our followers can relate to. Occasionally, depending on our needs, we will add a link to our fundraising campaigns. Then we joined Twitter in around May 2012. We have close to 19,000 followers. More recently, we joined Instagram and we have around 5,200 followers, again with an audience of about 75% South African ladies between the ages of 25 and 44. Even though all our platform audience is majority women, we picked up that the personalities of those who use the three different platforms are different. So we change our posts slightly to accommodate the followers on each platform. We feel that our social media platforms and our website works hand in hand. Our website has all our organizational information, donation information, and contact details. Some posts we feel sometimes gets missed on social media feeds, but nothing gets lost on a website. Our web address is advertised on all our social media platforms to direct traffic to our website, where a follower can easily have access to all the information. We often see an increase of traffic to our website after we have posted about the arrival of a new baby or an adoption. And this sometimes leads to inquiries on volunteering at our organization, but also leads to inquiries about financial donations and donations of baby items. The biggest communities now reside the biggest communities in which people now reside are the online communities. Use social media to give people opportunities to be part of what you do, because alone we can only do so much, but together we can do so much more. I'll finish off with a quote by Dave Willis. Don't use social media to impress people, use it to impact people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nadine. I love what you mentioned about, the contribution that digital is doing for your organization, especially the fact that you are able to get contributions from people. You're able to make people more aware of the work that you are doing. My question is, in terms of advertising, how much of this, I know some of this is organic traffic that you're talking about, but how much of it is paid traffic? Nadine, you're muted.
Always forget to unmute, sorry. We do have some organizations that annually have to do their corporate social investment. They will then assist us by creating or doing posts with paid traffic. So this generally we do around the Christmas season, and that is then when we obviously see quite a huge increase when we do our boost our posts around the Christmas period.
Okay, great. I'm sure we'll have a number more questions for you as we go along, and especially during the question and answer section. Guys who are online, everyone who's online, please don't forget, you can drop your questions in the chat. The mods will compile the questions and we'll be taking them all during the question and answer session. Our next speaker is a lady who I really respect, a friend of mine who is based in Nigeria. Her name is Fauziat Balogun Modupe. And she is currently based in Abuja. Yes, she's based in Abuja. And we'll just give me 1 second and I'll pull up her presentation. Here we go. Yes, she's currently based in Abuja and is working with Society for Family Health as the social media the country's social media engagement coordinator on the DISC project. So, Fawziat, I'll give the floor to you.
Yeah, hi, Evan. Hi, everyone online. Okay, so let me just say I respect you too before I start. All right. So I'm very excited to be talking about this particular topic, the rise of digital media in Africa and its impact on NGO campaigns. So to do a little bit of background, digital media is used by individuals, companies, government institutes, organizations to communicate, publicize, showcase success activity. And not only is the use of digital media for communication very important by NGOs, we all know it's very fast, it's very affordable, and has very few limitations compared to when you always have to do offline events, and we're not leveraging so much on social media and digital media, not because it doesn't exist, but because we were not really open to seeing how beautiful and how this tool can complement our activities. Well, over the years, the relationship between NGOs and its audience has changed, especially since COVID-19. Like I said, NGOs has been working, they've been implementing activities all over the place, but what really opened our eyes to actually leveraging extensively on digital and social media was COVID-19, the fact that it had a placed restriction on movements, and yes, the work still has to go on. NGOs is being funded by a lot of partners, a lot of donors, and when you're being funded, you have your objectives to your campaign, you have your deliverables, and you have people that you have to serve no matter what, and even in the face of COVID-19. So yes, digital media was a very good tool that helps actualize that. So to give a little bit of context to digital media over the years, for context, as of December 2019, total worldwide population is about 7.8 billion. The internet has about 4.5 billion users. There are about 3.725 billion active social media users on the average. We have about 7.6 social media accounts, and so on and so forth. What really stood out to me on this presentation is Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp as it is handle about 60 billion messages a day. Like, can you imagine 60 billion messages? So what we constantly have to think about is this thing is already being used by the people we want to reach. How do we leverage on it to make sure that we are also using this platform to communicate with people, to serve our purpose, to make sure that they are listening to us where it's convenient for them, where it's comfortable for them, where they actually have to understand the messaging we're trying to pass. Moving on to media split. To just give this a little bit of background, I was working in the communication outfit at about 2018, 2017, before COVID-19 at all. And we didn't start out using social media or digital media. We started out working very closely with traditional medias, that's radio and TV journalists. And it was about 2019, 2020, before COVID-19, on a project that we decided, let's train our first crop of social media and digital media persons. So we brought them into a room and we'll train them. The project was on family planning. How do we leverage on this particular crop of people to project family planning messaging to their peers using their platform? So we trained our first crop, not knowing that those first crop was going to be like a gold mine by the time COVID-19 starts, and we still had to put this messaging out there. So looking at this presentation, we had the standard budget split of when you're doing your production, you do 20%, you put 20% on your production, and you want to put 80% on media. Let's say your budget. So let's say you have 100,000 to use on a project, you put about 10,000 on production and you want to put about 90,000 to 80,000 on making sure that that particular message you produce gets to the people you want to serve. But then media back then, that means you're putting it on radio, you're putting it on making sure that your news comes out on the Daily News, on Tribune, on Vanguard and everything. But over the years now, there has been a dramatic shift in media focus from offline world to online world. So even the Tribune, the Vanguard that we're talking about as traditional media now are now online. They are now leveraging on their social media space, meaning that the news they put on their ad copy right now is also on their online and social media platform, because they know that they can get, when like 5 people are buying the newspaper, about 100 people have already seen the news they put out in about 10 seconds online. So it has evolved, it has developed, it's more beautiful. Digital options are playing a bigger role in campaign planning right now. So talking about return of the investment and measurement for NGOs, for every of our activity, for every of your campaign, before, let me talk about before I talk about after. Before, when you're doing an NGO activity and a funder or donor wants to support you, a person wants to support you, they tell you they're giving you 10,000 naira to reach 100,000 people for an offline event. And you have to reach that 100,000 people for you to say, okay, you've achieved your deliverable. But right now, the same thing applies to using social media and digital media for your activity. Just because it's now online does not mean you don't have to calculate your return on investment exactly the way you calculate it for your offline event. It still applies. So it means that for every post you put out there on your social media platform, did you reach the target audience you already proposed you wanted it to reach? For example, you're doing a malaria campaign and you want people in hard-to-reach community to get that particular post. And just because you're leveraging on social media, how do you make sure that that particular post still gets to that hard-to-reach community, and while using your social media, you still have to be committed to making sure that your deliverable is achieved while using digital or social media at the same time. After all, the time and money and resources put into it, you have to think about what's the return while using your digital and social media too as well. So return on investment is still very much important while using these platforms. Talking about content creation over the years using digital and social media. Like I said, everything that applies to your offline events, NGO campaigns back then still applies to online events. You still have to be very intentional about the messaging you're putting out there to make sure that you plan the way you want it to run in terms of alignment, in terms of reaching your target audience, in terms of auditing, monitoring and evaluation of your particular content calendar. So influencer marketing is actually also still very important. Benny, if you can move the slide, it's still very important. We all know that for most times when you hear something from your friends, you still want to go to that your particular influencer platform to see whether that influencer endorsed that particular let's say you want to take up a family planning option. You're thinking, okay, so who among my influencers, that I look up to on social media space is using these family planning options? What are they saying about it? What are the things they've heard about it from their own listening community? So influencer marketing is also a type of social media marketing that that NGO is using for endorsement. We ran a COVID campaign recently at Society for Family Health, and we leveraged on people like Real Warri Pikin, one Yoruba lady that has a big fan base, and we did some comedy videos and everything. So after pushing those comedy videos out there with core messaging on family planning, those videos reached about 900,000 video views. That's to talk about how very important influencer marketing is on the digital space with NGO campaigns. A lot of NGOs too are doing that, leveraging on their influencers platform to put their core messaging out there as well. So talking about regulations, right now, we know what is happening in Nigeria. The National Broadcasting Commission directs every online broadcast service provider and social media platform operating within Nigerian state to apply and obtain a broadcast license for their services. We know Twitter is on ban, which is a very major platform that young people are leveraging on in Nigeria. It's actually affecting us, affecting a lot of brands, they're affecting a lot of NGOs that has planned over the years that we're going to be using Twitter as a platform to push our messaging out there. But then what do? You have to innovate, you have to move on, you have to think of the next thing to do. And that's what NGOs campaign are doing as well. So speaking specifically on what e-commerce has been, what we've been doing at DISC when it comes to leveraging on social media platform, I'm going to run through this very fast. We are doing this in partnership with people, the marketing agency like Blue Flamingo, like Bean and everything, to actually make sure that we deliver messages to who we actually want it to get to. When I'm talking to my 3-year-old son, he would always ask me, let me hear you. I can't hear you. I don't understand you. And that's to talk about the very, how important communication is. When somebody cannot hear you, they cannot understand you. So yes, we are using e-commerce as a platform to actually push contraceptives and let people get alternative sources to contraceptives. We use social media. And let me tell you that our messaging reached about 6.9 million people, telling them the alternative source where they can get contraceptive even in restrictive situations. We have an interactive voice response, the 321 VIAMO platform, where people can actually get their call even while using not so smartphone to get information on family planning, and they can dial a toll-free line to get information. We have a digital companion and a landing page called Tina. It's a WhatsApp chatbot where you can, if you just say hi, it will begin to give you information on family planning, on self-injectables, on different types of contraceptive methods that women would want to hear. And this kind of programming were not happening before. These were the programming that happened because there was innovation brought about by COVID-19 restriction, and people started thinking broad. NGOs started thinking widely as to how they can leverage on these spaces. We do webinars and digital events to reach millions of people and educate them on some health promotion messaging over the time. For this specifically, we're focused on educating people on the sexual and reproductive health, self-injectable, and all of that, and self-care, and how we can actually empower women the more. So these are all of the things that we've been doing at DISC, and I know that a lot of NGOs have been doing a lot of other things, leveraging on these spaces. And I remember Bring Back Our Girls, that's an NGO campaign. I remember Fund Niger Health, it's an NGO campaign. 5 days to COVID-19, it's an NGO campaign. FP Friday, Family Planning Friday, that happens every Friday, with a group of young social media coming together to post messages on family planning every Friday. It's an NGO campaign and everything. So this space is beautiful, it's fast, is acceptable, it doesn't discriminate, and I know a lot of NGOs are leveraging beautifully on the spaces. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Having worked with you, I think over the past maybe 2 years, it's been really interesting to see the way an NGO is able to use social media, not just to educate, but to promote product use and actually impact community by changing people's values, people's behavior, people's perceptions about different aspects of life, especially contraception, because that's mainly what you focus on. There is a question for you. How do you deal with negative comments from your audience? And if funders see these comments, how does this affect your funding?
Okay, so thank you very much for that question. I think the beautiful thing about negative comments that is perceived as negative comments is it allows you to gain insight into people's thoughts and their mindsets so that you are able to correct it. So when we see negative comments, we don't take it as negative comments, we take it as an opportunity to increase that person's knowledge about that subject matter. And that's how our partner sees it too. So a lot of, especially when you're dealing with contraceptives in Nigeria, there's a lot of myths and misconceptions surrounding it. So you constantly have to, in fact, you want to even prompt for it. You want to prompt for that negative comment to know people's observation or barriers to taking up the methods that that is actually good for them. So when you see those comments, it's an opportunity to sharply address those myths, address those misconceptions, and partners and funders also sees it like that. Yeah.
I think one more question. This one now is from me. How do you link your online experience and your on-ground experience? How do you marry the two?
Okay, so that question is really important. You constantly have to, you can't exist in a vacuum, because if you're doing online events for a program and you're not linking it very well with your offline events, then you will be reaching some people for your offline event and leaving them in a vacuum, and reaching some people in your online event and leaving them in a vacuum. So you constantly have to brainstorm, innovate, discuss on how to marry both spaces. For example, you go for an offline activity, you meet somebody, they ask you questions about the subject matter they want to know about their health and everything. So in the night, they're thinking through what you've told them and they have more questions. Where is that space where you are able to provide more information, or where is that space that they can go to for more information when you're not reachable, when you're not available? So that's the audience, you know that you have to leave them you connect them to a space where they can go and find more information, which is social media, probably some of the pages you created to link to your campaign and everything. So as programmers, you constantly have to think like that, so that when you're programming, you program on how to marry those two core project strategies every time you program and every time you carry out an activities in both spaces.
Thank you so much, Fauziat. I'm going to move on quickly to our next speaker. His name is Nobi Zalberberg. He's founder of Socialdissima, and they are, giving a different approach or a fresh approach to permanent. The Socialdissima is giving a fresh approach in the US to how communications in the NGO space is being delivered. Their name reflects the importance of sharing through social media. So a lot of the work is social. Over the years at Latin Works, he has worked on brands like Mars, Snickers, and Starbucks, Hyundai and Target, and helped them win general market accounts like the Texas Lottery. He also created Latin Works for Good to give back to the community. But more importantly, he has been part of a very amazing campaign that he will be talking about that is impacting lives to date as we speak, is impacting our life or our lives for everyone who's on this call. So I'm not going to blabber too much. I'll hand it over to Nobi.
Hi, Ben. Thank you. Hi, my name is Norberto Silverberg. As Ben was mentioning, I'm based in Austin, Texas. So here is 4:30 a.m. So bear with me if I'm a little bit sleepy. Basically, what I'm going to talk today is what happened with us in the last 18 months. Try to put yourself in March 2020. Everything that you see here on screen was happening, right? People was fighting for toilet paper. People were dying in droves, and people was pushing against each other, trying to understand how to fight COVID. And, you know, trust was down in humanity in general, and infections and deaths were up. And in this situation, our client, an NGO, was tapped and called by Dr. Anthony Fauci, probably the most famous doctor here in the US and in some other places. And the question was, how can we bring people for vaccine trials? We need to test vaccines to stop this. And then the NGO called us and asked us the same question: how can we bring people for trials? And you can imagine this situation where you're asked to find a way to bring people to trust in something that it takes years to develop. And you know that there are a lot of misconceptions. And I mean, we're talking, the previous panelists were talking about misinformation online. Come on, that's exactly the best topic to bring misinformation. So when we got this question and when we were asked to bring solutions, we started thinking on how can we do it and how can we make an impact, you know, in this type of moments. And we decided to start talking with people differently. And we'll show you just what we call an anthem, and a way to start talking, not only on TV, but also online, on how we wanted people to start thinking about this.
This pandemic is not red. This pandemic is not blue. This pandemic is black, is brown, is white. It hits all colors and creeds. But even when things look bleak, we know that someone is full of hope and strength and wants to take action. Someone that would take a step forward just to hug their grandkids sooner. Someone that will inspire others by talking the talk and walking the walk. Someone that will roll up their sleeves, because that's what they always do. Someone like you, who wants things to go back to normal and is not waiting for others to act. Someone like you, a mother, a teacher, a nurse, a farmer, a worker. Help end the uncertainty. Volunteer now. Visit preventcovid.org.
So you can imagine how people started to react. In some cases, people wanted to jump in and to help. In some other cases, people will say, no, I don't want to be treated as a guinea pig, you know. And me being part of a minority in the US, I'm Hispanic from Spanish descent. We're trying to not only leverage our connections with the communities, but also trying to explain that if minorities were not represented in the trials, how can people trust the outcome of it? And I know in multiple places, vaccine trials are seen differently. We know the history of mistrials and things that were completely wrong in Africa, in South Africa in particular, in some cases. So when we were asked to say, okay, how can we bring this campaign that's working in the US to the rest of the world? Because you can see this is the map that we were given when we were just starting this campaign in the United States, and the different places in the world were impacted. So we started a campaign in Brazil, we started a campaign in Peru, but also we're asked to do a campaign in South Africa. And what we decided to do is just to go there and to grab, you know, people and companies and organizations that can understand and help understand. Because sometimes when you're managing budget from NGOs, it's not about throwing money. Basically, we know that we need to understand what is the historical context, how is the social dynamic, how is the political situation, how the psychology of people is working, but also knowing things and addressing elephants in the room. We know science sometimes is a white Western thing, completely crazy, completely detached of reality. And also we wanted to avoid any political implication, because we know that politics was very, very complicated. You can imagine we were launching this campaign while the US president was Donald Trump. I'm not going to say any more than this, but you can imagine how complicated could be a campaign with a person like that. So we decided to go deep And talking with Blue Flamingo and the fantastic team, we decided to leverage vaccine accomplishments. And what is that? Basically trying to reflect what vaccines did for people. Sometimes we forget, but vaccines save lives. And we had a motto that was saying that, you know, vaccines save lives, conspiracy theories don't. So in that sense, we try to go back and understand how can we communicate, how can we manage to make this communication effective, because there was no time. We needed to have trials pretty quick to get vaccines pretty quick. So the idea was to understand every single place we could go, turn every single barrier, and have an impact in the communities. So we created a specific anthem for South Africa based on the one that you saw, but you'll see a few differences there.
This pandemic affects people of all colors, ages, genders, religions, and creeds. But we're more than just people. We're South Africans. We're more than the sum of our parts. We're different. And that's what makes all the difference. The odds have been stacked against us before, and we won. We've stared down adversity and watched it blink. This time will be no different. To win this battle, though, we need a vaccine to manage COVID-19. We need you to volunteer. Help make a difference. Help end the uncertainty. Volunteer now. Visit preventcovid.org.za.
And as you can see, there's a little bit different in how we were talking, but also the colors. The yellow was the color for almost everywhere in the world, but we knew that yellow was, associated with government. So we decided to change it because we didn't want it to be seen as part of any campaign, any government campaign. But also, I think that you can see the different approach and trying to go deeper on what we know and what we knew that South Africa was about and the relationship with vaccines. But also what was key here was to have a media plan that could connect with audiences wherever they are. So we went, a little bit different. We were using different multiple media, but also WhatsApp groups and taxi communications, things that we knew that could help drive the message. And regarding a question that our panelists had before, how you deal with negative comments. With negative comments also, as Fosial was saying, you can deal and you can use it to educate, but in some cases, educating thousands of people that throws whatever was worthless. So in some cases, we're just saying, what makes no sense, I'm not gonna go there. And one thing that was keeping us straight was thinking that everything needs to be community-oriented and scientifically based. That was our main goal, to go this way every time. So what made our campaign successful? As I said, was, people-centered. That was very important. We were talking about people, we were showing people, and we were showing real people. Many of the people that we use in most of our communications were not actors. In some cases, were just nurses, firefighters, and people that we saw that they could give us a plus of credibility. Then the sense of urgency. We didn't have time to make mistakes. And whenever we saw something that was not working, immediately we listened, we learned, and then we act and pivot. Sometimes we were changing media plans every week. Blue Flamingo can tell that that was true because we were just changing and adjusting and going deep and trying to get people to understand that this was urgent, and also measure and optimization. This is key in social media. This is a bi-directional communication. So you need to listen what's going on to understand how can you improve and then put your message in the right place. Also, when we say about how could we do that is basically we just got safe and effective vaccines in record time. This is the ROI, this is the results that we got. And this is something that we're very proud about because vaccines usually take about 2 to 3 years to develop if you're thinking fast, but to communicate this in this crazy world, the last time that the vaccine was developed was years ago and there was no social media. So you can imagine that social media could be a great tool, but also could be a problematic one. The good thing is that we stayed focused and positive on what was our goal, and our goal was exactly this one. And we became a source of clear and transparent information. That was good because we became a source where people was going to and asking things. And also we had people within the networks that were defending the work that we've done. We had evangelists, we had people that was talking on our behalf because they saw that transparency, scientific knowledge, and community was in the center of the communication. And basically, we helped end the uncertainty. This is something that we were thinking that was not just the tagline, and we were very proud and happy that we achieved that with the help of multiple organizations, a lot of people, a lot of volunteers, but mostly by having a concrete and solid messaging through social media. We think that that was key, and that gave us, a lot of ways to communicate, engage in every level. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nobi. Thank you very much. I have one major question, or one question for you. How did you handle, and you're aware that during the pandemic, there was quite a lot of propaganda that was flying around. So how did you deal with, the false information that was coming in to be able to communicate effectively and get the right message across to your audience?
The way that this happened was we decided to go to the source, and we decided to address as we say, the big elephant in the room every time. So whenever we saw people saying, oh, we're trying to get Black people for the test because we're the guinea pigs. So we decided to go and talk with doctors, Black doctors that were in the middle of the process of finding a vaccine and related to communities to talk about it. And we asked directly, hey, why do you think that Black people think that they're guinea pigs? And they were saying, oh, yes, they may think about that because in the past that was true, and that's the case. But now I am here involved, I'm a Black doctor, I'm here involved, and I'm doing this, not only to find the vaccine, but also to keep an eye on my community. And those type of messages addressing things head on were part of our strategy, not to hide, but to talk. So when we got a comment that was misinformation because of not knowing the right thing, we confronted. When it was misinformation because they wanted to say that you get a chip and Bill Gates knows where you are, that's stupid. So you know what, we move on. So we decided to find which fights we will fight and find the region of the source to make this a topic and to educate people that look exactly like them. We have a lot of white hesitancy too. So we're bringing evangelical pastors to talk about it. So it's not about only Black people or Hispanic people or Asian people. We just decided to, whenever we find something, go to the source and turn it into an educational opportunity with the right people that is in that field.
Thank you so much, Nobi. And I will just quickly dive into a question and answer session. And now that I have you, I will ask the first question from Nikki Stewart. She's asking, what role do you believe having a decent media and production budget played in the success of the campaign? And would there be some validity in putting a case study together on this that can be shared with potential funders, with the objective being to highlight that well-funded campaigns, obviously executed brilliantly, have an impact?
I mean, funds are key, but I think that we have all the data to have a great case study because the results are there. We're not just talking, and obviously the results are not that we sold more pizza, or we have more TVs sold. We had vaccines and people that jumped up and stepped up and said, I will be a volunteer because I need to make this. Having changes on behavior for buying something is one thing. Having a change of behavior on being a volunteer for a vaccine trial is totally different. So I think, Nikki, to your question, there is a big case study with that. What I think that NGOs need to understand that is not only about throwing money, but also having on the other side organizations that understand how deep they need to go, where and when. That's the main thing, and that's what we did in South Africa. Just to be honest, and we worked together because I'm not a believer of, hey, you know, if you have the money or you're an American organization that has the money, can go and do whatever they want. That's not the point. You need to listen. You need to understand what's happening in the ground, but also you need to apply your learnings that could be learnings that are overall learnings that can be applied anywhere.
Thank you so much, Nobi. I will have one more question, and this is because you are from the agency side of things, not the NGO side. How do you deal, and this is from Sve, he asks, how do you deal or manage client relationships when a client seems to be more focused on the numbers for spending and funding purposes instead of the real impact of a campaign on the ground?
All depends on how you deal relationships with your clients. The way that we built the relationship with this particular NGO was very clear. We're saying your success is our success, but it's not just BS, it's real. You can imagine ourselves, we couldn't imagine a future with no vaccine because that will be the end, period. So our pressure was so big that in some case, I'll say that the limits between client and agency were blurred because we needed both the same thing. So what I will do if a client is thinking only about numbers, I'll tell you that they forgot how much money they spent. They just saw that we got to the result. So in one point, numbers are key, but results in a very hot topic are much more needed and complicated to explain. So in that sense, it's like, I will not say that trust us, but basically in a moment in time, imagine yourself, you're in 2020, everybody's dying around you, nobody has a solution, and we come with a plan. The client was saying, it's gonna work. And we were saying, you know what? We will do our best. Nobody did a campaign on COVID before because this is new. So what we promise is that with this money that is decent, we can go and push in the direction that we know. We're marketers and agencies. We'll do the best we can because we want this too. You know, it's not just, okay, we're gonna sell this and then we move over. But it's hard. I think that is important to build trust. The more trust you can build with your client, the more money they will bring because they will see you working and pushing as passionate as they are.
Thanks so much, Nobi. I'm going to call Nadine. I'll just re-ask the same question that we asked to Nobi, however, more to the end, to your donors. How do you deal with your donor relationship when they are more focused on, you know, your numbers? How many people did you manage to reach or impact vis-a-vis? So they be more focused on the impact vis-a-vis how far maybe a message was able to go and how many people you were able to reach with your message. How do you balance that?
Okay, it's something that we monitor quite often. When we have different types of posts, you always monitor to see how big the audience was that your post reached. And we actually noticed that when we do posts on social media that are good stories about the children in our care, then it reaches quite a huge audience. When we post, as an example, we are desperately in need of baby formula for our babies, it doesn't actually reach such a big audience. And you almost sometimes as an NGO get the feeling that people just want to share in the good stories, but as soon as you ask for help or assistance, then the response is not that great. But what we've also picked up is when we do reach out to the public to assist us, especially during the COVID times, it was very, very difficult to keep, the care going in the home to make sure that all our babies had enough formula and diapers. I think a lot of people want to remain anonymous. So even though it looked like it didn't reach a big audience, around the time of that post going out, we saw an increase of donations into our bank account. So I think that is why you always have to have a good balance. And we try on our social media is not to ask for help too many times, but we rather, unless it's really, really urgent, but rather use a good story that people enjoy reading and it touches their hearts and they can relate to it, and then hope that their hearts are touched enough that they actually want to immediately donate to your organization to support you in carrying on with the good work that you are doing.
Thank you, Nadine. Fauziat, David asks, from the statistics that you shared, is it that every social media user has on average 7.6 accounts in Nigeria?
You said what?
From the statistics you shared earlier, yes, in your presentation, is it that every social media user in Nigeria has on average about 7.6 accounts?
Okay, so from the statistics was a world statistics, so it's
okay. So it's not just Nigeria.
Yes, it's not just Nigeria. So like an average young person in Nigeria has many accounts, in fact all of the accounts, but we know that social media in Nigeria is not penetrative to rural areas right now. So it's more that average Nigeria we're talking about lives in the urban area, or it's young and of that age group that would have all of those accounts and is able to get your messaging via the platforms you're pushing it through. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's also important to note that there are very many social media platforms that exist. If you just count, for example, an average user has a millennial, I'll say, has a Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, has a Telegram account, a WhatsApp account. Those already are 8. And some even have more because there are many other social media platforms that exist out there. So it is possible that people have that, but also remember that people have multiple accounts. So you'll find someone has 2 Facebook accounts or has 2 Clubhouse accounts. So it is possible. Shanice, yes.
Speak quickly to the question the previous user answered.
Yes.
Nadia said about
yes.
Doing social media in terms of how you actually reach people. So programming with social media has taught us that when you actually put in posts out there, sometimes you have to go beyond that social media platform to now measure your reach. Meaning after you've run campaign for a while on your social media, digital media platform, sometimes you now have to build research in that community you were targeting with your adverts or something to make sure that to find out how, if your messages actually reach that particular community that social media has been evaluating or monitoring that it has reached, if they actually understood the message, if they got the message and how that message resonates to them. So while programming with social media, sometimes you have to program offline activities to go along with it when it comes to monitoring and evaluation of your activity on social media. Yeah.
For that, now since you're still here, Shanice asks, do your users or does your audience use USSD as well for the programs that you do?
Okay, so that leads me to say that, okay, so I've been saying it's that one size does not fit all when it comes to programming. So when you're programming with digital media, it gives you different arrays of tools you can leverage on when it comes to reaching people. So when you're reaching people at the rural areas, then you might want to use USSD. You might want to use that platform where they can just dial with their Nokia phone, their phones that are not smart, to get the same information you're putting out on social media that is reaching people, that are not able to actually have data, have access to purchasing data. That means you have to program thinking about their economic status as well. So that way you might want to program with USSD, which you actually did on our project as well. While we're programming heavily on social media, we also programmed with USSD to reach the communities that are not able to be reached by social media with the same information that we are putting out there. So yes.
Thanks, Fawziat. Just want to bring Nobi back. There's a question from an anonymous viewer here. Says, this is a really eye-opening presentation. What is the biggest challenge you experienced while doing the campaign?
Oh, there were multiple challenges, let me tell you, but I'll say the one challenge from within is how to keep everybody, you know, not only excited, but also motivated, but also awake. In some cases, we were working for 19 hours a day. We were working for 180 days nonstop, no Saturdays, no Sundays, nothing. I mean, you can imagine that stressful. On the other hand, we had production companies in 3 different places, so we could work 24/7. We have one production company in the US, one in Argentina, one in Spain, and also you guys in South Africa. So we're having constantly moving the needle,
yes,
and having multiple production managers handling that. So this is from the production standpoint, that's one challenge. The other one, the bigger one, is how to keep the ball in the eye, so not losing it. And you can imagine when there was a pause in the trials, you know, the trials were paused because somebody had an issue, somebody died. Those were moments where you get calls at 4 a.m. It's like, what do we do? And then you need to react. Probably the challenge there was, what should we do? And we took it as, you know, as it is. We just decided to go with transparency and say, yes, somebody died. There was a problem with the vaccine, but you know, it's better for us to tell you that we stopped, so you can feel that we're caring, even if it's one person. So, you know, those were challenging moments from the communication standpoint. But also you can imagine for managing multiple teams who were more than 230 people in 5 different countries and in 3 different continents, the challenge to manage all that, this is part of the team. The team that we built was fantastic, is fantastic. We're still working. And the best thing is that we still are friends. So after going through this situation, you know, having the chance to work so with great professionals, that's good. And, you know, multiple challenges, but mainly the biggest challenge was to not get a good outcome. You know, for us was like, we need to get this done and we need to get representation. When we were asked to start this, the representation for Black communities was only 2% of the trials. And we needed in the US at least 13%. And in South Africa, we needed to have multiple people represented, not only by color, race, but sex and age. So in different places, we had different challenges, but the good thing is that we listened to the people that knows, and we decided to react and pivot and go deep and try to be transparent. That was the bigger challenge that we had.
Thank you so much, Nobi. And I'd like to thank everyone who has been, who joined us for this webinar. I know we've gone over time just by about 10 minutes. I'm just going to ask all our speakers to do, a parting shot and answer one last question from their standpoint. Nobi from the agency standpoint, Nadine and Fawziat from the NGO point of view. And I know, Fawziat, you touched a bit on this. It's on return on investment. And I know that it's one of the biggest, questions that you always get, Nobi. How do we measure return on investment for the work that has been done? For you, so yes, ROI. How do you measure it? How do you measure ROI as an agency? How do you measure it as an NGO?
Well, ROI is it's a cold number. I will say that you need to combine. Sometimes the best way for me is to say, if you want to see things cold, that's fine, but you need to combine, because in the NGO arena, there are multiple things that are not measurable. I mean, as what Nadine does. I mean, how can you measure that? Those are kids that have no families. What is the ROI? And so in some cases you can go and tap into the ROIs, or at least have a ballpark. We'll get there. But in some cases, as an agency, I think that it's good to say that we don't have the solution there sometimes. We don't know. We'll go and do it together. How can you measure this? We're not scientists. We're marketers. So in some cases, we can, explain this is what we think that's going to happen. But sometimes I will revert the question sometimes. It's like, why you want this ROI? Why? Tell me why. Because, oh yeah, everybody wants to, the client comes to you and say, oh, I want to just increase my sales in 25%. Where are you coming from? What are you doing different? Are you changing the product? Are you investing more money? Why? Tell me why. So the moment you're getting an ROI, I think that it's good to ask and to turn the tables and to ask, hey, tell me where you're coming from, because economy is not growing 21%. So why want this? It's just your thought, your desire of your shareholders. Fine. Everybody wants to get more money. I don't know a company says, no, we don't have a rise. We don't want to win. No, everybody wants to win. But if you can go and ask that question, you can turn the table and then get an interesting conversation. I agree with the panelists, Francis Meru saying you cannot guarantee ROI. Correct, you cannot guarantee ROI. At least you can say, I'm gonna push through this. I'm gonna move through this, but also questioning the ROI is a good way to start a conversation.
Thanks, Nobi. Nadine?
Yes, I agree. That is an extremely difficult question to answer. I wouldn't know the way to start, but as Nobi was speaking, I was picturing myself walking into the baby house. We have 40 babies in one of our houses. And to me, where you notice the return on investment is when you walk into the storeroom of our baby house, and you can see that your social media interaction has stocked up your shelves a little bit. So where pre-post, you were thinking, when are we going to get the next tin of formula to feed our babies? Post-post, you walk in and you see, oh, we've got a week's formula that has been donated to us. So that is the only way we can see our return on investment, is to see an obvious assistance to help care for our babies. And that is how we would measure that. I don't know any other way of how I would measure it. Thank you.
Fawziat? Thank you.
Okay, so I see things slightly, a little bit different. So let me just give an example. You have do a social media proposal for a campaign to reach women to educate them about contraceptives. And you know, in Nigeria, you have the number of people that are on social media or on Facebook in particular. On Facebook in Nigeria, you know that number from your research. So from your planning, you already have a mindset of how many of these women you want to reach with information and what you particularly want that information to do for them. Do you want the information to increase their knowledge? Do you want a behavioral change, which is harder? Do you want them to just, knowledge, behavioral change, that take up action? So it depends what you're planning for. So for example, if you want to increase people's knowledge, how do you now measure that on social media? How do you know that that particular woman that you've reached with your information on social media's knowledge have increased? So, and if you now tie knowledge increase to your ROI, you might be able to actually measure that with metrics on social media. For example, I'm using Facebook. Now, when Facebook will give you metrics, it will give you the number of people that have engaged with your content. It will give you the number of people that have liked it and the number of people that have commented on it. It will give you the total number of people that have engaged on that content. So, for example, you want to reach a woman, like 100 women in a particular community, and you target your ads to that particular community with a particular amount of money, let's say $10, and you want to reach 100 women in that community. So now you've targeted ads to that particular community, and about 50 women engage with that post from that community, because Facebook will tell you where they are going to, where people are engaging from. So you, at the end of the day, you might be able to calculate your return on investment based on that particular strategic activity that you've implemented. But when you're now looking to measure behavioral change, in that have people now gone ahead to take up, to implement or use the knowledge you passed through social media to them, that's actually harder to measure via social media. But there's some particular and specific metrics that you can measure and measure your ROI from with social media. It's harder with digital media, it's harder with medias like radio, TV, and everything. But then with social media, at least you can do it simply, and you can do it simply, yeah. So that's just a different line of thoughts on this going forward. And yes, that's it.
Right, thank you guys. And I really want to extend huge thank you to our speakers, Fawziat, Nadine, and Nobi. Nobi, I know we've stolen a few hours of sleep from you, but we really, really appreciate you joining us on this. To everyone who joined us on Facebook and on Zoom, I also want to thank you so much. And we look forward to hosting you for the second session of this webinar, probably with the same guests, maybe with other guests, you never know. But please look out for the updates, and I'll sign out. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.